While so many audiences were first introduced to Meleys as Rhaenys' intimidating red dragon during the first season of House of the Dragon, Meleys was not always bonded to Princess Rhaenys, the queen who never was. No, this dragon story spans well over half of a century, before the events of House of the Dragon, before Rhaenys, and before Viserys was named king. Meleys was bonded to a different princess, at a time of much greater peace. The very beginning of Meleys is still a bit of a mystery, as the history books of Westeros first document Meleys' existence only as being born before 75 AC. At this time in Westeros, dragons were still prevalent, but they were not as various and abundant as they were at the time, the start of the Dance of the Dragons. No, this was a different time, where the line of succession to the Iron Throne was far more clarified. The realm was ruled under the power of Jaehaerys Targaryen, first of his name, who is widely considered one of the better kings in Targaryen history. With no civil war between the Targaryens to ignite turbulence and factions, Targaryens found themselves much more free to spend their time with more leisure activities, such as dragon riding for fun. Many speculate that Meleys was one of the first dragons truly born and raised within the dragon pit, and it is fair to assume this is accurate as there is nothing in the histories that contradict this, and it seems like the most practical origin story. The only history recorded simply states that Meleys resided in the dragon pit until 75 AC. From what we can gather, Meleys did not reside here alone, as one of her companions was the well-known dragon Caraxes. Though Caraxes would sooner be mounted by Aemon Targaryen, the Prince of Dragonstone in 72 AC, Aemon Targaryen would later father none other than Rhaenys Targaryen, who will claim her part in the story of Meleys here just a bit later. But first, let's discuss Meleys' first rider. Let us introduce to you Alyssa Targaryen. Daughter to King Jaehaerys Targaryen I, Alyssa was married to her brother Baelon Targaryen in 75 AC, and with Baelon in 77 AC, they became parents to who would become King Viserys Targaryen, and later Daemon Targaryen as well. While Alyssa's third child, Prince Aegon, was a difficult birth, ultimately claiming Alyssa's life, and later Prince Aegon died as well before he turned a full 1 year old. But back in 75 AC, the same year Alyssa married Baelon, she was without a dragon to claim for her own. Alyssa was first attached to the idea of claiming the most infamous dragon, Balerion the Black Dread. The dragon keepers who worked in the dragon pit, though, convinced Princess Alyssa to consider a younger, quicker, and more vibrant dragon. This dragon, of course, being none other than Meleys, the she-dragon herself. Meleys had scarlet scales and pink membranes on her wings, for which she received her alias, the Red Queen. Her crest, horns, and claws were bright as copper. The dragon was described as splendid and magnificent, a perfect fit for a princess, and many agree that the show House of the Dragon captured the image described in the books for Meleys as very accurate. The Princess Alyssa was seldom away from the dragon pit after the day she claimed Meleys. Flying was the second sweetest thing in the world, she would often say. However, the sweetest thing she dare not say in the company of ladies. Meleys proved to be a perfect match for a princess as daring and rowdy as Alyssa. Many have compared Alyssa to Arya Stark from the original A Song of Ice and Fire book series, pushing back against social norms, which for Targaryens and the mighty power of dragons, who other than themselves could tame their spirits. Much of her time was spent flying among her brothers, Aemon atop his dragon Caraxes, and then of course her husband and brother Baelon the Brave, who saddled himself on the storied dragon Vhagar. While the legend of Vhagar and Caraxes is fascinating in their own right, when it comes to swiftness, as promised by the Dragon Keepers, Alyssa and Meleys proved to outpace the male Targaryens on their respectful dragons. However, the duty of women in Westeros is the battle they fight on the childbed, birthing future princes and princesses, and childbearing is priority for even the women of House Targaryen. So as Aemon and Baelon flew their dragons off to war, Alyssa, and subsequently Meleys the Red Queen, would not participate in these battles. Though in the case of Meleys, this would not prove to always be true in the future. While the history documented for Meleys' time bonded with Alyssa Targaryen is relatively peaceful, what many fans of Meleys enjoy to explore is how she is connected to many key characters in the history of Westeros. While Meleys is not said to take flight in any wars during this time, with Alyssa on her mount, Meleys did serve to take to their first flight both Viserys Targaryen and later his brother Daemon Targaryen in the arms of their mother Alyssa. Keep this in mind for when we play a little game of Connect the Dots here later in the video. Sadly, Meleys' first rider did pass away due to childbirth complications, and after 84 AC, the death of Alyssa Targaryen left Meleys riderless for a few years. Now this does bring us back to Princess Rhaenys Targaryen. While it is believed that while riderless, Meleys spent her time in the Dragon Pit, it would only be a few years until 87 AC Meleys would accept a 13-year-old Princess Rhaenys Targaryen. Much like the writer before, Rhaenys would take flight often and marveled at the opportunity. With her father Aemon Targaryen at this time the appointed heir to King Jaehaerys, Princess Rhaenys was invited to take part in the royal progress, which is a way that many Targaryen kings would travel among the realm. These tours allowed the Targaryens to make themselves known, loved, and respected by their subjects, or to be feared if necessary. Participating in these royal progresses, Rhaenys would arrive on the back of Meleys to Highgarden to meet up with Jaehaerys, and together they flew all 4 of the Shield Islands. On Green Shield, she informed the king about her intention to marry Lord Corlys Velaryon, and received her grandfather's blessing. Rhaenys married Corlys in 90 AC at the age of 16. She insisted on arriving at the wedding on the back of Meleys. The beautiful aspect for the life of Meleys is that she held the power as fierce as any other dragon, yet her riders flew with her graciously, traveling the world as Meleys shared the freedom of flight. Of course, a well-traveled man of the likes of the sea snake, Corlys Velaryon, would appreciate this with his wife Rhaenys. As interesting as the life of Rhaenys, though, her story is for another time. However, to tell the story of Meleys, the choices and alliances made by the queen who never was would ultimately lead to the fate of the Red Queen. Years after the Great Council and Rhaenys was passed over for her cousin Viserys as heir to the Iron Throne, after much debate for the path of Targaryen succession, another conflict of succession would play out, involving another would-be queen. Unlike the time Meleys would stay at home and out of the fray when at that time her rider Alyssa was still a young mother who saw her brothers and their dragons go off to war, this time would be different. As Meleys' current rider, tragically, no longer had children she must stay home to see to, Rhaenys, along with Meleys, would join Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen and the Black Faction, as they would join Rhaenyra in the Targaryen Civil War, known best as the Dance of the Dragons. And while there is no prior documentation of either Meleys or her rider Rhaenys fighting in any wars before this time, they both would spearhead the Black's efforts in the battle at Rook's Rest. However, before we go over this part, we must address the introduction of a moment that changes a little bit of the known story for Meleys and Princess Rhaenys, as the story told in House of the Dragon includes a moment not previously accounted for in the book material. Now, is this done strictly for spectacle, or is this a sequence that was left out of the history books by mistake? We may never know if this was truly how this event unfolded during Aegon's coronation. If it is so, this would account for the first instance of violence performed by Meleys in her lifetime, but it would not be her last. No, that would come during the battle at Rook's Rest. To quickly summarize, the Greens, under the leadership of Sir Criston Cole, the new hand of King Aegon II, who wanted to be more aggressive than the previous hand, Sir Otto Hightower. He planned to trap the Blacks at Rook's Rest and make nearby houses loyal to Queen Rhaenyra submit. With an army of about 3,000 men, he marched to Duskendale, surprising them and then taking over. Then, he attacked Rook's Rest, burning fields and killing small folk. Lord Staunton, seeing trouble coming, closed the gates, but could not stop Criston's army. He sought help from Queen Rhaenyra. 9 days after Lord Staunton sent for help, Rhaenys Targaryen and her dragon, Meleys, flew to Rook's Rest, but Sir Criston Cole was ready for this. His soldiers shot arrows and used big weapons called scorpions to attack Meleys. Meleys fought back, burning Criston's soldiers with dragon fire. The trap had been set. Criston Cole's big plan finally took place, when Aegon and his brother Aemond arose with their own dragons, Sunfire and Vhagar, and attacked Rhaenys and Meleys. While Meleys was mixed up attacking Sunfire, Vhagar attacked them from above. The 3 dragons crashed to the ground. Aemond and Vhagar were okay, but Meleys did not survive. While it is recorded that Sunfire was also hurt very badly from Meleys' attack, the combination of Sunfire and Vhagar combined proved too much for the Red Queen to overcome. When we do play Connect the Dots, this tragic end to Meleys brings on a much sadder affair of history, as we recall that when flown by Rhaenys' uncle, Balon the Brave, Vhagar could be seen as a companion to Meleys, as she was flown by Rhaenys' aunt, Alyssa, joining Rhaenys' father himself, Aemon, as he flew atop Craxus. Yet the divide between the Targaryens of the Blacks and the Greens pitted these beautiful, yet ferocious creatures against each other. Ending the story of Meleys unfortunately grows even darker as we learn that the head of Meleys was brought back to King's Landing by the forces of King Aegon and drawn on a cart through the city, a display that awed the small folk into silence. Depending on the lens of which you see this now, after many were killed by the Red Queen at Aegon's coronation, perhaps the small folk saw this as justice. The Red Queen Meleys, who took baby Viserys to flight, would later be killed by the dragons flown by his very own sons, bringing this story, in a way, full circle in tragic fashion.